Return values. In the previous video, we learned how to give information to a method. In this video, we will learn how to receive information from a method. Consider the following program. In the first line, we declare the variable x and then set it equal to the results of an expression. We then print that variable x to receive this as our output. In the next line, we print out a method call. Whenever you print out a method call, two things happen. First, the Python interpreter will execute the method. Then, if that method call produces a value, the Python interpreter will replace that method call with the value produced. Now, keep in mind, not all methods produce a value because not all methods are intended to. However, we do know from experience that the round method produces a value. The round method in this case is going to produce the variable x rounded to 3 decimal places. So when that method gets executed, the value 0.429 gets produced, and thus that's what will get printed out to the screen. Anytime a method produces a value, we call that value the return value. The return value is the value a method gives back to the program after being executed. In Python, when you're defining a method and you want that method to return a value, you will need to use the return keyword. For example, here we define a method named my_method, and all it does is simply return the value 10. Henceforth, anytime this method gets executed in the program, the Python interpreter will replace it with the value 10. For example, if I declare a variable and set it equal to my method, then that variable will get set equal to 10. Hence, when we print that variable out, 10 gets printed out. Likewise, if I invoke this method inside a print call, once again, my method will get replaced by 10, and thus 10 will get printed out. Methods that have a return value can also be used as part of expressions. Once again, in this line, the call to my_method will be replaced with 10, and now the expression will become 10 plus 5, which of course equals 15. Let's look at another return value example. Here we have a method named add2, which receives a single parameter, then adds 2 to that parameter, stores the sum in a variable called var, then returns that variable. Let's execute this in the program and see what happens. In the first line, we call the add2 method and give it the parameter value 5. So what's going to happen is 2 is going to get added to 5. That gives us 7. That's the value that gets returned, and subsequently print it out. In the second line, we use the add2 method as part of an expression, as a part of an addition expression. So what happens is, before we can do the addition, we must first execute the add2 method. So what happens? 2 will get added to 10. That gives us 12. And thus 12 gets returned. Now that we got a value in place of the method call, we can now execute the expression. 12 plus 3 is 15. 15 is what gets printed out. In the next line, the add2 method gets called twice, as both the left and right operands of an addition expression. So what happens is, the left-hand expression will get executed first. The parameter is 6. The 2 will get added to 6 and then returned. Thus, the first call will be replaced with 8. Next, the second call to add 2 will be executed. Here we're adding 2 to the value 12. What's 12 plus 2? 14. So 14 gets returned. Both calls have now been evaluated. Now they can be added. 14 plus 8 is 22. 22 gets printed out. And now for our final example, we're going to look at two methods. The first method called getDiameter. You can think of this method as one that computes the diameter of a circle. It receives one parameter, we'll call it r, which is short for radius, and returns 2 times r, which is the formula for a circle diameter. Then beneath that, we're going to have a method named getCircumference, which gets the circumference of a circle. It receives one parameter, we'll call it r, and returns 2 times r times 3.14. Now, there are a couple of things you should notice about these two methods. The first one being that they both have a parameter named r. Now, even though these parameters have the same name, that does not mean they are the same variable. They are not. They are two different variables. The r that's declared in the getDiameter method exists only inside the getDiameter method. and the r parameter that's declared for get circumference exists only in get circumference. So they are not the same variable. It's kind of like two students with the same first name. They have the same first name, but they're not the same person. Similarly, in this case, we have two parameters with the same name, but they are not the same parameter. They are not the same variable. Okay. The next thing I want you to notice is that the expression for get diameter is also used inside the get circumference method, right? The expression for get diameter is simply 2 times r, and that same exact expression is used as a part of the get circumference expression. So what that does is it gives us options. We can leave the get circumference method as is, or we can replace 2 times r with a call to the get diameter method. Both of these approaches will yield the exact same results because, once again, 2 times r is the expression for get diameter. Thus, using either one makes no change to the method as far as computation is concerned. You're going to get the same results regardless. However, it does have a stylistic difference. Sometimes having methods call other methods can make your program more readable and easier to fix in the event that your program has errors. That all being said, here's how the Python interpreter works when you have a method calling another method. Suppose when we're executing, we execute the get circumference method with the parameter value 5. What the Python interpreter will do is it'll go to the code for get circumference. It'll replace the parameter with the number 5. Then it'll go inside the first line of that method and it'll see, okay, we're calling the get diameter method with the value 5. So now we need to go to the code for the get diameter method. R gets replaced with 5. We then go to the first line of the get diameter method. See that in this case, it's going to return 2 times 5, which is 10. So when we return to the get circumference method, the call to get diameter gets replaced with 10. So now we'll be returning the result of multiplying 10 times 3.14, which gives us 31.4. So now the Python interpreter will return back to the initial call to get circumference, and that call gets replaced with 31.4, which subsequently gets printed out to the output console.